James. Thanks so much for doing this.
Hey, Leah. Of course. I love spending time with you.
Oh, it's so fun. Well, let's start at the beginning. Let's tell everybody a little bit about ThinAir Labs itself.
Yeah, ThinAir is, so we are the leading investment firm focused on innovative early stage companies in Canada. We operate in a fairly unique way because we go after a very unique market. And that unique way is just focused on supporting our founders through the early stages of their company development through to Series A. And that has allowed us to have some pretty extraordinary success with those with the ventures that we work with. And through that process of building the operating procedures around ThinAir, we came up with a new term called Ecosystem Studio, which is the way that we define how we operate inside of our entire ecosystem, which is not just investing money into ventures, not just helping the entrepreneurs, but looking at the broader holistic environment that these people are working in. So we love to work with government to help influence policy, academia to help influence the curriculum and the focus areas. We love working with research institutes and again academia who are developing interesting IP underneath the covers of their institutions. So we go out of our way to not just put together capital, but also energy, resources, and experience to help these other people in our ecosystem be successful. And we believe that just raises all the boats. And selfishly, that will benefit ThinAir in the future as well. So that's really what we do here. There's the two sides of it. We really invest in early stage companies and we build at the same time. And that building happens within the companies and in the community that we work in.
And that really is what allows us to get those massive returns that we're after, right?
Yeah, what we have seen because of the way that we engage in the early stage of a venture, and we partner very closely with the founders for their success, it allows us to see where the innovation is coming from, where the passions of those entrepreneurs are, and sometimes we work with those founders for years in advance of the investment actually happening, and that allows us to be picking these potential unicorn companies at the earliest stages of formation. So I like to say that we're working with unicorns. They're just not there yet. Their horns haven't grown out of their heads.
I love it. I love it. And this is really just a good indication, really evidence of our track record of success working with these early stage founders.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we think about success, we like to be first into a company. And the reason for that is that's where we're good at. We're good at working with that stage of company. That's where the experience of the 20 plus people that work in this organization really focus on. And that first in has allowed us to be really, really successful in returning capital. And when we think about the investments we've made, the Siemens, Athenian, Stellar Algos, they're not just some of the fastest growing companies in Calgary. They're some of the fastest growing companies in the country, and they're making a massive impact. And the end result for us as investors is a really strong return on investment.
Yeah, so exciting for sure. Which leads us to ThinAir Fund 1. Let's tell everybody a little bit about the fund itself.
Yeah, the fund is it's a $100 million fund that we're raising. We're going to focus on early stage investing into seed stage companies primarily in Alberta, but we will stretch into the prairies and sometimes across Canada when there's the appropriate one. We believe that 75% of the capital will be deployed in Calgary. That's how strong this ecosystem is showing the potential for high growth global impact companies. So we'll invest in the early stages of companies. Normally the first check into a company. We will then back them with our expertise to help them get through to Series A. We hope to take between a 12 and 18% holding in a seed stage and do our pro rata in the Series A. And beyond that, we look to other investors to help us fund the growth of the companies beyond that. And that's really where we as an organization move from an operationally focused investor to one that's much more financially focused as other expertise come around these companies to help them scale up. We're great at taking them to that Series A stage, and other investors are great at taking them to the finish line. So we know our place in this, and we focus early because that's where the risk is, but that's also where the return is. And that's where our team mitigates the risk so that we can drive these massive returns over time.
Absolutely. It's this idea that we sort of know how this model works, and now we just want to scale it.
Exactly. It not only do we know how it works, it is working. We've been doing it for a number of years now. We've been seeing how these companies respond to the support that we give them. And I don't want to take anything away from the founders. See, we're also really good at picking great founders that are driven. We see a lot of them with deep domain expertise. And the problems they're working on are things that they've been working on for longer than a decade. So this is why we're starting to see these results. So not only do we invest early, we tend to pick a very specific type of founder and a very specific type of company, and then we like to see them become the company that they can be, which is globally impacting multi-billion-dollar outcomes.
Wow, very exciting. So a lot of people, I'm sure, are wondering why Calgary and why Alberta?
Yeah, it's a question I get asked a lot about because, cutting my teeth in the venture world in Toronto, obviously that's a very exciting ecosystem, and I could have a choice to set up ThinAir labs anywhere. Calgary stuck out to me partially because, first of all, I've lived here before, and I understand the culture of this city and the people that are in it. And I believe that with the disruption that happened in the energy sector over the last 5-6 years, it has created the fertile ground that we are now seeing these companies coming out of that are now going through explosive growth. And to me, there is no better place in North America today to invest in early stage companies because this ecosystem is truly emerging and there is so much opportunity. And Calgary is a really special place on the planet in general. And I keep saying Calgary, but Alberta should be included in that as well because it's the energy sector here that has driven so much innovation, so much wealth, and so much of the entrepreneurial spirit that we are now seeing in tech. I expect to see Alberta and specifically Calgary drive a number of multi-billion-dollar outcomes and at a far greater pace per capita than we'd see in other sectors of the Canadian ecosystem. And it's strictly because of the type of economy that we have here.
And I think a lot of people would be surprised to learn that Alberta is now home to more than 3,000 technology companies.
Yeah, that's a pretty staggering number when you think about that. And we're only in 26 of them, so we're in less than 1%. So it's a pretty amazing number, and I think it speaks a lot to the type of entrepreneurial spirit we see here. The technology is a big part of the energy industry, and that drives a lot of that number. But that technology that's built for that industry is also applicable across a lot of different industries, and we're starting to see the expertise that comes from that being applied in different areas. And that 3,000 companies is only going to continue to grow because, as we know, Calgary and Alberta in general, they typically lead or are near the top of per capita new business starts and new IP creation across Canada. We're continually at the top of the leaderboard when it comes to that. So the opportunities are ever present here. And that speaks to the entrepreneurial mindset of this city and this province, which is, truly one of the most interesting and unique economies in the world.
So let's move on then to the ThinAir Labs investment thesis. Tell us about that specifically.
Yeah, there's a couple of really important factors that we think about when we're talking about investment. The first one is about people. These companies are people-driven organizations. It comes from the creativity of humans. It's not about muscle and machinery, even if that's what we're building. So we focus on founder first, and a lot of people say that, but to us that means, especially because we invest in the earliest stages of these companies, we want to have a strong partnership with that founder. And our partnership is based on one simple premise, is make them successful. And in that situation, we have to put our egos in our back pockets and believe that they are going to be right. We've already made the bet that they're going to be right. So we better believe it, and then we better support them. And so that's the whole basis behind Founder First. And let's be honest, I'm an entrepreneur much more than I am an investor. And so these are my people. I love hanging out with these people. I love seeing them successful. I love thinking about their businesses with them. And what I love about the game of investing into this early stage, it's a 7 to 10 year journey. And the relationships you can drive with that are really profound. And so that's one of the things that I'm excited about as an individual. But as a team, that emphasis on founder first begins and ends everything that we do as a company. And when we step outside of that, we feel it right away and we correct it. So it's a really important premise for ThinAir. The other thing is, we've already talked about this, we invest at the early stages. We want to be the first check into companies, and that's primarily just to drive the metrics of a return on investment. We're looking to get 100x return off of the first check that we write into a company, and so that means we have to invest as early as possible. That's why we have this whole system that helps these founders move through that early stage, because typically we see, anywhere from, the numbers are variable, but anywhere between 50 and 80% of companies fail between their seed stage investing and their Series A. And we don't like that number. We think that number should be zero. And so far in ThinAir Labs, knock on wood, it is zero. And we want to continue to see that and have our founders be successful with our support. The other thing that's important is about the product and how that impacts the world. We're looking for things that have global potential. And global potential for us is, when we think about it, it drives that ROI as well. We don't want to invest in companies that are regionalized or only have a solution that can fit a country. We think much, much bigger than that, because the distribution channels that are available today are much bigger than that. There's all kinds of investors that can focus on that style of a business. We're looking at the ones that want to go across the globe and become these massive, massive organizations. And we've done it. We know how it's done. And so that's the way that we want to work with our founders. And so when we make those investments with our founders, we're already talking to them. We understand that they want to build multi-billion-dollar global companies, and so do we. And so we get aligned behind that really quickly. And then the final one, I think, is the most important to the outside of founder first, but the most important thesis piece of what we're doing on the investment side of things, and that's the impact on humans. And that is something we describe as, an economic tool of how we think about growth and profitability. When you are creating immense value for an individual, they are much more likely to pay a higher price, continue paying for your product over time, and tell their friends about it. And when those things occur, then you have much, much better business outcomes. It's pretty simple. And at the same time, you're doing social good. You're actually doing something that people like. And so those two things in combination make it really easy for us to sit there and go, impact on humans, check mark, we're interested in your company. If not, there's other investors who may be more appropriate for you.
Right. And it's this idea that we can do both, can't we? We can have this massive impact and make money at the same time. So we can make the world a better place and make money at the same time.
Absolutely. In fact, I would even wager that, in fact, we are wagering that we can make more money focusing on the impact on humans rather than just a financial return, because it's humans that drive that financial return. And if you're driving value for them, it's going to be returned to you in spades.
Yeah. Let's give a couple of examples from the portfolio so this becomes even a bit more clear. What about Cyantra, for example?
Yeah, Cyantra is a really easy one. It's pretty basic. Who wants any loved one to die of breast cancer? And Cyantra is creating a blood test for breast cancer. In fact, they just commercialized it last month and have started doing these tests. It's 96% accurate and is replacing the need of mammography as a first detection tool. And this is detecting cancer at the earliest stages of its evolution. So the outcomes that can be driven when this early detection happens are really, really beneficial to people. And who doesn't want that? And Cyantra is going to be developing a test for all types of cancers. So when we think about the potential of that company to have an impact on people, and then the economics that may be associated with that, this could be a $100 billion company that saves millions of people's lives. That's a perfect example of what we do here. Another one that we just made an investment into is Rehabtronics. And they're a company that, again, a life sciences company, because it's an easy example to illustrate our investment thesis. But they're focused on curing the issue of pressure wounds and bed sores, which are a chronic issue for people that are incapacitated and in bed for significant periods of time. So literally the weakest and most vulnerable people in our society today develop these atrocious wounds that can be very negative and long lasting and can lead to, in fact, a spiral that leads to death. When we think about those things, the human impact on that is really, really significant. The fiscal impact of that is even more so. When we think about the health, imagine how much Alberta Health Services or any of the health agencies in Canada pay to deal with this problem. Imagine if it was eliminated. Think about the impact on people and think about the impact on our health systems. It is incredible. If we can get this out at scale, the number of people that will be impacted by this will be in the millions, and the savings by health agencies is going to be in the trillions. So this is another example of really just focusing on something that has impact on humans, but also has an enormous commercial upside.
It sure does. And this is something that is really personal to you, isn't it, James? Like, this is the kind of impact that you want to leave on the world.
Yeah, I think that's it is something that I wake up and think about every morning. I want to get out of bed and do something meaningful. I want to work with great people on great problems. And I think we at ThinAir have come together with this whole mantra about impact, and we really want to drive that. The whole team is behind this. And, we've had conversations about what does that mean to us as individuals. And, I've heard things like these are stories that our grandchildren's grandchildren could tell about ThinAir Labs and the impact that we had way back when. And to me, that's meaningful. That's so much more than just investing in a company and making a whole bunch of money and, flying around on a private jet. I'll still fly around on a private jet, but I just want to do it by doing the right things with investing. And, we have a lot of choice of what we can do with capital today. And I think today in society, focused on human impact and making the world a better place is just a much, much better way to make money. And it feels good. It just feels good. It's working with those founders and seeing the success and hearing the impacts that we're having on their customers when they buy their products. Sometimes it tears me up and it makes me proud that this is the work that we do. And it gets me out of bed every morning with a lot of joy and a lot of energy. So I see this happening for quite a long time.
Yay! So finally, what do you want people to know then about ThinAir Labs?
I think the key thing is that we're aggressive here and we're bold. And this is a time to be bold in this world. There is so much opportunity. So we're bold and it's time to build. And so we're going to do that too. So we're going to work with our founders to boldly create these opportunities and roll them out to the world. And it's time. It's time for us to do that. And we can do that right here in Calgary.
James, thanks for this.